said, I have Gear 5. I have Gear 5 Luffy. The official judge is Tron. The moderators hide. However, for the recording, if Hyde does not step in, you stop the debate and get a different moderator. Anyways, my position is that my character beats your character position.
Then my character beats yours.
Okay, what's the argument?
You want me to start? Okay. Yeah, I think Akainu scales over Kizaru, who scales over Luffy.
Sit in both.
Okay. We can get into the first one first.
Okay. Yes, he judge my one.
Damn, that's crazy, bro.
Shut up, Mono.
Yeah, let's talk a big mono like that on me.
Because dang, it
Fuck,
depends
bro.
on the way in which he is above him. I agree that he's above him in specific aspects, but I don't agree that he's above him overall in terms of every single relevant aspect.
Hermes' ass.
Also, I remember Red One Piece. I don't know the fucking statement.
Like that his slide is insane. Get bitch.
So I don't know why the fuck Trouble Shitty fucking tier 17 ass has scored me ass, bro. You fucking trash. You fucking shitty ass bitch.
Damn.
Yeah, bro. Look at him, bro. I'm muting everyone who speaks. You next, nigga.
Wait, chill. Okay, wait, chill. I can't debate when he's muted.
Okay, I'm just scan. I'm gonna
that's
send it.
some dick ride.
Wait, hold up.
Listen in
Is there a
the
scan? Okay, yeah. What server is this again? Fucking.
Incheon.
Oh, Incheon, okay.
Nick said Incheon.
That's the name, bro.
The name's
Why did the
Incheon.
skins?
Look is
How Red Look is
Yeah,
more
the
than you.
skins are here. Okay, yeah, the Navy enforces and policies pirates and comprised of seasoned veterans with various ranks such as Fleet Admiral, Vice Admiral. The higher the rank, the greater the combination of combat ability and charisma.
Okay, so why is it just the case that his combat ability is the thing in which passes the lower rank, specifically Kizaru, rather than charisma being something in which overwhelms the charisma and which is possessed by the lower rank, that being specifically Kizaru?
Well, we're told explicitly it's a conjunction of both. It says combat ability and charisma.
I agree that it's a conjunction. However, if it's the case that, for example, hypothetically, one has the charisma level 10, while one person has the strength level 10 and the other has the strength level 9, it follows that the person who has the charisma level 10 will be above the person who has the charisma level 8 in combination, as in even if we were to conjunct the two.
How does
Would
that
you like me
work?
to break that in simpler terms? Okay, yeah.
No,
So when you say how does it work?
What do you let me explain what I mean. Wait. Yeah. What I'm asking you is like, why is that the case? Is what I mean by how it works.
Why is what the case? I didn't say it was the case. I'm asking you a question. Are you asking why my question is the case? I don't really know what that means there.
Oh no. Okay. Basically, why is it the case that being a combination would like defeat it being a conjunction or something? Or, like change it being a conjunction.
Oh my god, this is stupid. We have to use our ears. So it being a conjunction means it's a combination. These two are logically conjunct. So there is a combination between two things within the sentence. So it analytically is identical. I never defeated the fact that it's a conjunction. I'm saying that because it's a conjunction, if one feature specifically outweighs the feature which is possessed by another person significantly, then although they can be way, way, way below in terms of another feature that they have that's suppose that the thing in which is superior would be the one in which is weighed more. So, like I said, if you have, and this will be a better example, charisma plus strength, charisma is level 10, while strength is level 15. It's the case that in comparison to someone who has charisma level, for example, 9 or 12, and their strength is level 10, although their strength is something in which is below the strength of the other person, it's the case that the charisma level is way, way, way above or massively above. I might have worded that incorrectly, but I can word it again if I need to.
Yeah, the thing with the conjunction is by definition it's going to require both for it to suffice. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a conjunction.
Wait, just to be clear, chill. Can you please mute your mic? Gone.
I'm modding. He sniped. Alright, go on. The terrorism ended. Yo,
Yeah.
bitch,
So
continue.
yeah, damn. Yeah, one on the truth table. Yeah, one on the truth table. It separates inclusive and exclusive conjunctions. This is like basic logic 101. So whenever you presuppose that it's an inclusive or exclusive conjunction, which says an and rather than an and or, that presupposes within this scenario they're using an in or exclusive conjunction. And then secondly, even if I were to grant that it's an exclusive conjunction, which does not talk about an or, but rather just only a logical and, it follows that it weighs both. So although it can be the case that both of these things are what determines a rank, it does not mean within the scan at all. It does not say within the scan that both of these must quality be above other person's features when it talks about both. So what that means to say is that yes, it is talking about charisma and high levels of combative strength. However, if it's the case that the charisma is something which is massively above the charisma of the other user, while their strengths are relative or on the same level, they're obviously going to take the person with the higher level of charisma because the determination is both charisma and strength. But there is no significant gap between strength and the strength of the both users, basically.
Yeah, okay, so firstly, it says and rather than and or, so I'm just taking it at face value, just prima facie. And then
What's the
secondly,
argument for
when you
that?
says the argument for that is just the wording of the statement. I already told you.
No, I'm asking why
Wait,
prima
hold,
facie is
hold
valid
up, hold up, hold up, hold
justification
up.
when trying to convince people.
What the fuck? Wait, so you're asking me why prima facie is valid?
No, why is prima facie valid within context of debates where you're trying to convince people, specifically the judge or the opponent? I agree that prima facie is something that we can use as a tool of consideration whenever we're going through the real world. However, why is it to use that as valid evidence overall?
Oh, well, I don't have to use it as evidence. It can just be like priors. But what I would
Yeah,
say to this is that
priors are evidence.
hold up. Huh?
Priors are
That
evidence.
firstly. Wait, hold up.
Yeah,
All right, you gonna
priors
let me
are
finish?
initial beliefs. Yeah,
Wait,
yeah. Hold on, let me clarify.
mod.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
You got me off. Yeah, okay. So, you can prove that after, but what I wanted to say about the intuitions thing is it's just going to be something that increases the likelihood. Which why wouldn't we debating? We try to assess which claim is more likely in order to see um which one we're more justified in believing. So if it's the case that prima facie is intuitive, then we should use it. Okay, you can go.
Okay. Yeah, one, I don't grant that prima facie is intuitive. Secondly, I don't grant that prima facie is likelihood increasing. Thirdly speaking, the reason why priors are evidence is because evidence is some fact of I apologize. Evidence is simply some data in which increases the likelihood of any given hypothesis X. It's the case that priors are used to increase the given likelihood of a hypothesis X retard. So analytically, these two things are identical. It follows that priors are evidence because evidence is a data point in which increases the evidence, I apologize, likelihood of a hypothesis. Priors increases the likelihood of a hypothesis because priors are initial beliefs. It gives you more reason to believe that hypothesis Y follows in comparison of hypothesis X, for example, which would be what evidence is used for. That's what evidence is set up for. So that's the argument. It's analytical.
Yeah, no. So the difference between priors and evidence is the fact that priors justify things within accordance to your knowledge, where evidence just justifies them in general. So and also show me your definition. It seems like we have conflicting ones. Show me the one. Huh?
If you're talking about the definition of priors, my definition isn't idiosyncratic. The reason why you believe we're going under different ones is because you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. In response to the first retarded thing that you said, both of these things within this context are talking about our epistemic axis. So it's the case that there is a hypothesis X, in which is talking about our epistemic axis when interpreting the scan, and then you have an hypothesis Y, which is talking about our epistemic axis when we disagree on the possible interpretation of the scan, you fucking idiot. So when we're using evidence, it's the case that priors within this scenario would qualify as evidence because it is some data point and which would increase the likelihood of whatever we're talking about. When you say that evidence is talking about general events, I don't grant that specific evidence can be limited events. So it can specify events or it can talk about general events. The difference between priors and evidence is that priors are evidence, but evidence is not priors in every single scenario. So just because within this scenario, it is the case that priors is a subcategory of evidence, that does not mean that evidence is which priors is mentioned. I apologize. Every single time evidence is mentioned, priors has to be mentioned. But no, that's not what I'm saying. Every single time priors are mentioned, evidence has to be mentioned. So although I can hypothetically grant that priors are specified beliefs or certain epistemic situations, it's just the case that in every single one of those epistemic situations, priors are being mentioned. In comparison to what you're talking about, I don't grant.
Wait, hold up. I'm walking. I'll repeat it when I get in the house. Hold up.
Repeat what?
Everything you said.
Okay.
This nigga already forgot it. I love Infinity, bro.
I love you too, bro.
Bro, Infinity, if I was a girl, I'd mommy dom you, bro.
I don't know what that means, and I'm not going to search it. I'm just going to say you're a porn addict.
You know what a mommy kink is, bro. You know what it
Oh,
is.
yeah.
And you know what
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
mommy is, like a mommy relation. Yeah.
The problem with you, Isaac, is that you forget the points that we mentioned prior, bro. That's all I'm going to say.
Yo,
Yeah,
who
okay.
Bro,
told
Isaac,
Hermes
start
Can
to
you
no.
shut the
repeat it
mic
now?
up, bro?
Yeah, yes. So
What the
one,
fuck?
yeah, yeah, Hermes. Yeah. So yes. So let me just clarify. When I say priors, I'm not using some idiosyncratic definition. I'm using the standard philosophical view of what priors talks about. You just don't know what it is, which is why you're questioning whether or not we use similar definitions. So if you still want me to send it, I can. But all a prior is initial belief. Evident priors are identical within a scenario because which increases the likelihood of some given hypothesis. Priors are initial beliefs, in which initial beliefs I'm using them to increase the likelihood of this specific hypothesis that I have, that I posit. Now, whenever you say that they're identical, not saying that you made this claim, whenever you say that they're identical, that's false. 100% I agree. I believe that priors in every single scenario where they're announced, evidence is going to be announced because our priors is a subcategory of evidence. However, every single scenario where evidence is announced, it does not have to be the case that priors are announced. That's just trivially true, 100%. But when you ask me why they're the same, well, under my view, they're the same because they have the same analytical criteria within this specific scenario. But under your view, what they represent can change. So you're saying evidence represents general populations of topics. Well, I believe that, or while you're saying priors is not. Within this scenario, I believe that evidence is able to change in terms of representation. So evidence is not only able to represent general populations, but also particular populations. In this scenario, it would be the case that is representing a particular population and hypothesis, which would still fit under the definition of evidence that I gave. And then that's the claim that I made. And when prima facie is intuitive, just to clarify, I think that prima facie is some intuitive to it, comparing evidence within real life events, but that's for consideration, not for justification. You and from justification. I ask you to justify the scan, not motivate the scan.
Okay, can you show me the standard definitions of evidence and priors? Because
No, that's irrelevant. But I can. I got you.
wait, why is it irrelevant? Because you made the claim that what you're
The
saying
reason why
coheres with
is
the standard
oh my
definition.
bad. Yeah, the reason why it's irrelevant is because even if it were the case in some impossible world where Isaac is the best debater and you're the case that it's still just my analytical criterias and I'm the one who announced them within the debate. So it's not like I'm using them idiosyncratically. I apologize. In a way in which is making me commit a definite fallacy or some shit like that. I'm not using it fallaciously because I defined the words. I made it clear what I mean by the words, but I got you with the definitions though. Hold on.
Yeah, you made it clear what you mean by the words. Well, the current point of contention is what I meant, and what I meant was an error, correct?
I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means for something you mean to be an error. Something to be an error, it must be the case that there's
Well,
some flaw within a system of codification. However, it can't be a flaw within an analytical criteria. What the fuck? They're subjective. They're subject to the mind. Flaws are something which talks about objective systems of codification. So it's not true to say or correct to say that there's a flaw in your meaning, which you're not. This is the definition of evidence. The body points, or in other words, datums are pieces of information. That's what a datum is. A single data. Let me just clarify. Data is a collaborative term. Data means a set of datums. Datum is a piece of information. Now let me get the definition of a prior. Like, oh my god, I thought you learned this from Gyro. Okay, prior definition. Bayesianism. Definition, man. By the way, all these are from Oxford, if you're wondering. Keep shots. What the fuck is lag? Okay. So this is the definition of a prior. It literally says what I said because I know what I'm talking about. I present your initial beliefs or assumptions about the parameters of whatever the topic of conversation is. As you use your priors and then look at new evidence, appreciate the new evidence, and then update your hypothesis. So within this scenario, I'm asking for the justification as to why, rather than it being an inclusive conjunction, it's an exclusive conjunction, which is not even something in which creates I apologize, creates likelihood for your point. If I were to even if I were to grant that it's something which is inclusive, or I apologize, exclusive, it would still be false. Your point would still be false without the justification of the way being there.
Yeah, wait. If it's the case that you priors with evidence, then how can it be the same thing? You'd be
I never
updating
said that.
evidence with evidence.
Never said that.
Wait,
You have
wait,
to
hold,
listen.
hold up. You didn't say that like they were identical. That is category, right? So if a subcategory, then it would have continual evidence, correct?
Hello?
But whatever. Wait, did you hear what I said?
Yeah, priors are some type of evidence you can use for the likelihood of hypothesis X. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Then you would be updating evidence with evidence rather than updating
You're
priors
not
with evidence,
updating
which
the
according
evidence,
to
you're
you.
updating the hypothesis.
But oh yeah. You update the hypothesis. My bad. Okay, so I misspoke there, but that doesn't really change what I said. What I'm trying to tell you is that
Yes.
you up. Okay, so the first level is the priors, then it's the evidence. How can it be the same thing?
No,
Then
it's the new evidence. Okay, you have to listen, bro. So yes, however, not in every single scenario where, and my bad for cutting you off, by the way, I just want to clarify. But not in every single scenario where there's evidence is there priors. In every single scenario where there's priors, there's evidence because priors are ontologically parasitical, or I apologize, linguistically parasitical to evidence. However, evidence is not linguistically parasitical to priors. So it means that new evidence, which is completely unidentical to what priors are, because priors aren't new. They're initial beliefs. Initial means that these things were there before. That's why it's called prior. It's not posteriori, but prior. These things were already there. New evidence does not qualify as priors because they were not originally there. They're not initial. So you're updating your hypothesis with the new evidence while it's coexisting with the priors if it's the case that both the priors and the new evidence are compatible when it comes to actually being positive of the hypothesis X.
yeah, okay. I'll just move on to the other things that like you questioned. You questioned why it's going to be the case that it's intuitive in the sense of justification. Even if it's
Yeah.
not, I can drop that point out. Not that it really matters because it says and rather than and or. So if you just go by the semantics, then the
Yeah,
point
you're
anyway.
not understanding that. But when you say it goes by means the meanings. However, conjunctions in which are exclusive is still semantical. Like that you can still say and not add the or, and it still can be an inclusive disjunction or conjunction. That's the entire point. So the point of contention is whether or not within the scenario it's exclusive, because conjunction, when it talks about its meaning, it's still a conjunction, but they just add exclusive or inclusive. For your point to be true, it would be the case that they would put exclusive in front of the conjunction. However, they just say conjunction. Exclusive and inclusive doesn't change, relevantly speaking, the conjunction itself if we both grant our apologize. Relevantly speaking, the word conjunction itself, but rather the word, or what we are using is the word.
Yeah, okay. So if the or doesn't change anything, and then and can refer to and or, what's the point of adding the or?
I said the or doesn't change the word. The word is still spelled the same. The word is still conjunction. It's just the
No,
case
no,
that
no.
what it
Okay.
includes is different. The domain it oversees is different.
Yeah, what you're saying is they still refer to the same thing. But I'm saying if they still
The same
refer to the
word.
They're the same word. Yeah. Then what would be the point of the or? Then
Okay. Them referring to the same word conjunction is not relevant to whether or not the representation is distinct. So
oh
I'm
my god.
saying, although we can, oh, listen. So I'm saying what it changes is its grasp over specific domains. The grasp over domains would include both Y and B. Basically, it changes the true values on the truth or on the truth table. It changes the values on the truth table. Okay. So if we take a conjunction, the conjunction can only be true if and only if. So biconditionally, both T are just both P and Q are true. That's an exclusive conjunction. But for an inclusive conjunction, it's the case that the values on the truth table are going to display truth whenever case that P is true, but Q is false, or Q is false, but I apologize, Q is true. That's what it's going to change. It's going to change the grasp over domains.
Yeah. Okay. Firstly, can you show me how that would be applied into the truth table? Secondly, even if the whole I guess semantic implication point doesn't go through, I don't think that would matter much because either way, I think it's an additional assumption to say that it's and or rather than just and by itself.
Do you really want to do this? Okay, I don't. Let me get the. I'll let you represent.
And then we can get into whether or not it changes something because there's another thing that you question after that.
You literally. Wait, if
Yeah.
what changes something? Real quick, just clarify.
No, because you also put into question whether or not there would be a relevant difference between and or. Like anyway, so we can get into that point
No, I
after.
did not. I gave the relevant distinction. No, I didn't. Just to clarify.
Okay.
Look,
Yeah, I misheard you then.
okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, no, good. Look, my bad. I didn't know I was gonna be teaching like Carnegie's logic, but I got you, bro. Hold on, it's fine. I usually pay, but I usually charge, but so
This nigga
yeah.
has made
So
$0.
really smart people, unlike you, have actually studied what we're talking about in the truth table. So the first truth table is hold on, let me clarify. Let me make sure. Wrong thing. Hold on. But the first truth table represents a disjunction, okay? So it says value of the statement overall, because it's a compound statement, the value of the statement overall, or a compound sentence, the value of the statement overall is Q is, or P and Q are true. If P and Q are true, if P is true, but Q is false. And finally speaking, P is false, Q is P, and Q is true. So that's what the inclusive disjunct or conjunction is talking about. Now, hold on. Um, So I don't know if I'm with GPT. I'm going to use ChatGPT in this instance. You can explain things 3 times better than mine because I usually talk to high tiers like Mono. It says it in what is an inclusive conjunction? An inclusive conjunction is a logical connection, most commonly the word or, that means one, the other, or both can be true. The inclusive conjunction is usually called inclusive or, written as disjunctive symbol. A disjunctive B is true if A is true, B is true, both A and B are true. Okay? So what's the other thing that you burned, by the way?
I'm
Hello?
pretty sure that's
What was
it.
the other thing that you burned? Oh, okay, I'm dismissing some hidden burden then. If it's the case, I didn't respond to it since you believe it's it. Okay, well, go ahead.
Wait. Okay, dude, your own thing says that it most commonly uses the word or. So if or isn't present, then and is only
Because
present,
it's
even if it is the.
disjunctive.
Whoa, are you let me finish? Okay.
Huh?
Hold up. Yeah. Okay. So if when it's disjunctive, it most commonly has a or, and there's not an or there, and there's just an and, then we have more priors to say it's just referring to the and rather than the and or, even if there isn't
Uh,
some type of contradiction with the definition.
uh,
Or
oh, So it's saying is for no, it's talking about the truth table. So it's talking about for the display of truth tables because it's usually an exclusive or exclusive disjunction as well. It's saying that on a truth table, unlike a conjunction, it typically shows both the values whenever it's saying that P is false individually or true is, or Q is false individually. In comparison to a conjunction table, which does not show that specifically, but because the conjunction table does not include the or, it does not include the inclusion, because that's already clarified in the exclusion. So that's what it's talking about when it says or, because it's typically defined by a disjunction, not a conjunction. But that's only talking about values represented by a truth table. That's not talking about in text.
Wait, but dude, you just debunked your own point. What you literally asked it is, what is an inclusive conjunction? You didn't say specifically about inclusive conjunction when formalized to a truth table. Talking about it
Truth tables,
generally.
oh my, a truth table was all possible values for a given property specifically, but it's talking about truth value. All right, I apologize. It's talking. Look at the chat. The inclusive or conjunction is usually called inclusive or, written as a disjunctive symbol. A or B is true. If is true. B is literally giving a truth table in the chat GBT. Like, do you not know what the fuck you're talking about? It gave a truth table in the chat. Like, what the fuck?
Wait, bro, when I'm saying that it's not a general point, I'm talking about the initial test. The initial text, if you paid attention to what I said, inclusive
The text is
conjunction or logical.
elaborating with the
Wait,
truth
let me
table.
finish.
It
Wait,
literally
mod,
references the
mod,
truth
mod.
table.
But yes, but I'm saying there's a separation of parts of the text.
Wait,
Can you let me
what's the
finish?
justification for that?
Christ.
Because it says in logic. So hold on, hold on. It's expansion when it comes to the definition. It literally starts off with by saying in logic, the inclusive conjunction is usually called exclusive or, written as ba 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 ba. Now, within this debate, I called it an inclusive conjunction because they use the word and. However, that and is something which is collaborative with the disjunction if it's the case that it's inclusive. So I'm putting into question why it's not just talking about this inclusive disjunction, or in other words, this inclusive conjunction, rather than it being an exclusive disjunction or an exclusive conjunction. And then even if it were the case that hypothetically this point did not go through, even though it is going to go through, it follows that I don't see why both features are just not weighed. Meaning to say that you have charisma 10, strength level 10, I apologize, strength level 15 in comparison to charisma 16, strength level 20. Or no, charisma 9, strength level 20. Although it's the case that your charisma is above the other person's charisma, your strength level is significantly above their strength, or I apologize, your strength level is below their strength level. Meaning that although both features are something which you both possess both features, it's the case that they weigh the features, even though that's what the role is defined off of.
Again, wait, you asked me what the separation was, but then it says a separation within your own scan. It literally says in logic. So we're referring to within logic. That's when it's talking with the truth tables. Wait, let me finish. Wait,
Yes.
dude. Wait, where's the mod? Wait,
My bad.
Christ.
I ain't gonna lie, my bad, my bad.
Yeah, all right. What I'm
Bro,
trying to
every time y'all interrupt, you niggas stop. So, you know,
Oh, okay.
it's probably because
What
y'all
I'm
know the
trying to
threat,
say
the big hive.
is that the initial thing is just talking about the general definition of an inclusive conjunction. And then what it says there is a logical connection, most commonly with the word or, right? So it's just talking about the general definition rather than what's in logic. That's why it's separated by logic. We see a subcategory within your own scan.
The point of contention is whether or not it's a subcategory, and then secondly, this is very, very stupid. Why is it stupid? Because
Huh?
conjunctions and disjunctions are always logical. Logic is a type of language. Disjunctions and conjunctions are a part of that type of language. Even when we apply it to layman talk, if we're using the words correctly, it follows that they're always logical. What the fuck are you talking about? If statements being true is something which we depict and determine through logic. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? If we were able to do both Y and B, that is called a compound statement or a compound sentence, because we're able to, like, for example, you're black, which is a statement, is a declare sentence that's either true or false. And then you're gay is a statement, is to declare the sentence that's true or false. There's an and that logically connects the two. When we say things in which are conjunctive, it's always the case that they're logical. So no, that is not a subcategory. That's not a new category. That is the only category. There's no categories under it, which for what you say to be true, there has to be a category that ChatGPT gives under it. But there is no category that it gives under it because that's the only category it fits under. Like what the fuck? This is so retarded. And then let me give my definition of a truth table because niggas want to be retarded real quick. Definition: a mathematical tool in logic that maps out all possible true/false outcomes. This nigga Haram is actually autistic. No way. Any of you know what definition? You're fucking autistic. I'm debating you and Isaac. Like, is he stupid, Mono? Like, am I tripping? Like, am I dumb? Like, I just gotta ignore. I'm about to block this gay ass bitch.
You are
What's the
not
response,
debating
Isaac?
me, bro. Go bet Isaac him.
Yeah, I know you suck. I'm debating someone way better than you. What's the response, Isaac? I apologize,
Ironic, you're a fucking retard.
bro. You
Okay,
said it
wait,
while
so
pretending to yawn. Go ahead.
infinity. Yeah, so when I'm referring to in logic, what I mean by that is just the formalization. Okay, yeah, obviously both are
No, that's
logical
not
statements. That's
formalized.
not what I'm gonna. Huh? Wait. Okay, so
Yes,
you don't.
what?
Wait, hold up. You don't think that the truth table is a logical formalization?
I'm sorry.
And secondly,
Yes,
wait, hold
yes,
up.
but so are words. So are words. If you're using, hold on, if that's what you mean, yes, because all a truth table is a mathematical, but also tools that we use. Like what the fuck? Okay,
Wait, okay, so infinity. Why is it the case that when somebody makes an argument, but like through words, and that there's no like syllogism or anything, why is that considered an informal argument if this is a formalization?
because it's structure. It's structure. So it's informal because of its structure, not because of its content. So the words themselves are formal. You're using formal words given whatever the context we're talking about, depending on the context. However, the reason why they say it's an informal argument is because it doesn't follow an inference rule. This has to be retarded. Like, are we being for real? Like, oh my
Huh?
god, did you just ask why? Let me no.
Wait.
Careless. This nigga just no.
What the
This
fuck?
nigga just
He's
asked me
wrapping up.
why. Hold on. Nigga, I
Dude.
wasn't done. Yeah. Anyways, so the reason why when someone gives some sentence or some argument that's structured formally speaking, someone as a response calls it an informal argument is because it's structured contents. Informal logic deals with the contents of what we're talking about. Not formal logic deals with the logical structure of what we're talking about.
Okay, wait, so you don't think that informal arguments have inference rules? What the fuck?
No. But let me get the
Is
other
that not
thing
what you
from
literally just
ChatGPT
said?
real quick about the thing. Is it the case that conjunction means anything outside of logic?
Once again, that's not what I said.
No, I'm clarifying for the judge what you said, but let me just get for the judge. How bad? Yeah, so I'll send that. And by informal logic, anyways, an informal argument, I apologize. By a formal logic, are you talking about the use of symbols to represent what we're
Yes, that's what I'm referring to. I'm saying that there's symbols here. That's what I mean.
wait, just
Argument-
symbols? No, wait, no. These aren't formalized logical symbols. These are called variables. These are variables. A and B are not logical symbols. Logical symbols will be the negation sign, or for example, the conjunctive sign. Those are logical symbols. Those are logical operators. We cannot be this retarded, my nigga. A and B, B and C, those are not logical operators. Those are called variables to represent any given proposition. So, for example, P, or I pleasure P, Q, a logical conjunctive symbol or a logical disjunctive symbol have universal meanings, as in those specific definitions are more concrete. They're more A, B, C, those can represent any entity, any being. changed within context to make things simpler. So no, that's not logical in the sense where that's not formalized. If you're talking about logical operators, which I thought you were talking about formal logic, actual formal logic. I apologize for that. But go ahead.
Yeah, okay, so what I would say to this is that even if, like, let's say the point goes through that it's all about logic, right? I don't want anything.
I disagree with
Um,
that.
um, I mean, I think we can
There's
just.
what conjunction can be used outside of logic.
No, that's not what I said. Oh my, what I'm
No, I
saying
just
by
want to
logic is,
clarify
I
this.
mean,
Do you grant that no. Do you grant that there
okay,
not a single context in which you can use the word logic?
yeah, no, I agree. It refers to logic. That's not what I was saying.
Okay.
What I was,
Bro, I know. I'm just clarifying, bro. Damn.
oh, okay. All right, no, the reason why is we're saying that in general it just refers to logic, and then or is most commonly used here. What we're saying, then that's not going to change anything because it's commonly used in all the cases.
Yo, bro. Oh my god. Oh my god, bro. Listen, they refer to as inclusive more than a conjunction within formalized text because of the way truth tables are the truth table. They show the conjunction. That's why it's irrelevant to show the inclusion of a conjunction within the conjunctive table. So what you're saying is irrelevant. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about in text, not within truth tables, which display values. So an inclusive conjunction will be and or. An inclusive disjunction will be or and. I'm saying within the scenario, I don't understand why it wouldn't just be an inclusive conjunction.
Yeah,
I
okay,
don't
we
think.
can
Can
move
you
on from that
respond to
point.
the hypothetical point I gave?
Hold up. Wait, Dennis, on to what?
Yeah, I really want to keep pushing this point. What is your response to the combination waypoint?
Yeah, I already told you this. What it is I think that it requires us to say that it's an and or an and you said we can get into that.
Okay, I don't
So yeah,
grant
let's get into that.
ideological parsimony. When you can have a larger account when we're talking about parsimony or what things, anyways, and what things actually explain a hypothesis better. And then also, it's just the case that when you say it has more assumptions, since your proposition, bro, we already talked. Anyway, since your proposition assumes the negation of my proposition or my belief, it would be the case that we have the same amount of assumptions.
Yeah, okay,
I
so for
don't
the
grant that
first
the
thing, well, wait, hold on. For the first thing, why do you think that like I have to be positing ontological parsimony here?
well, it's the case that ontological parsimony talks about the quantity of assumptions or entities in comparison to other accounts of parsimony. So I just named ontological parsimony. Now, if you're talking about semantical parsimony, for example, I don't grant semantical parsimony either. If you're trying to use Occam's razor in a way in which combines both semantical parsimony and ontological parsimony, I don't grant Occam's razor or something which is valid. Like I said, out of all the accounts of parsimony, it seems to be the case that ideological parsimony is the more consistent one. And then when you say that this thing is more ideologically parsimonious, I don't grant that that would be the case, and I can explain why. If you grant ideological parsimony, and speaking, it just seems to be the case that if you don't grant any of these parsimony, the number or quantity is just not a good assessment to use.
Wait, but you realize that statistical parsimony also refers to the number of assumptions, so I don't have to be going by ontological parsimony to
You
just
have to
go by the
listen,
number
bro.
of
I
assumptions.
literally just said any account of parsimony in which goes off of the quantity. I said this like 5 times, brother. I gave examples. Examples. You know what an example is? And also, by the way, the
Yeah,
way
okay,
that
and then
statistical parsimony.
um okay, so what's the difference between ideological parsimony and I guess these other accounts to where ideological parsimony doesn't refer to like the number of assumptions or like the entities posited by the
That is
assumptions?
the
Like, can you
difference.
just lay out the
Ideological
terms?
parsimony isn't talk about the number of assumptions, talk about the nature of assumptions, simply primitive concepts. So it's the case that you have for Occam's razor, which typically refers to ontological parsimony, gathering the quantity of assumptions in comparison to ideological parsimony, and which is talking about the number of, or I apologize, the nature of the some hand, is it the case that you have primitive concepts? So some view as less ideological parsimonious if it's the case that there exists more primitive, or I apologize, primitive additive primitive assumptions or primitive concepts, primitive concepts. I mean,
Okay, well, a
you just
primitive
can't
assumption
speak.
is an assumption, correct?
I meant primitive concepts, bro. I literally just clarified that.
Okay. What is meant here by a primitive concept?
What you don't know, how do you do that? But just say you don't know what the fuck it means. It means basic concepts. It means some given hypothesis X. So it's some word in which cannot be defined in the same. It's some word in which cannot be defined by the terms itself, but rather all the other terms within a hypothesis are defined and reduced back to that specific word or concept. Like for example, you have a given hypothesis X, which has moving left, right, forward, backwards, or you have a hypothesis Y, which is simply saying direction, and that includes all those four things in which I listed. Therefore, has a much less complex primitive concept in terms of its linguistical stat or semantical status. So yeah, ideological parsimony seems to be something which is openly ontological parsimony, etc., especially statistical parsimony. About looking at the quality of concepts, and then, like I said, I just don't grant that the quantity of assumptions specifically or the quantity of entities specifically is a determination when it comes to hypothesis expectation rates or explanations, explanation quality.
Yeah, okay. Well, now that I know how like you're defining it, I guess I'll just ask you, since you also claim it's this, to leave it's more consistent.
Yeah, okay. Because when we're applying every other account in a non-layman way, it's the case that there's always going to be an equal amount of. However, that same lack of determination when it comes to our epistemic axis is not the same within this scenario, non-layman scenario specifically. There is nothing in which determines or classifies an equivalence in quantity the same as, I apologize, an equivalence in quality the same as an equivalence within quantity, meaning that it's more consistent in terms of applications in a non-layman context because there's an actual valid determination of the complexity of some given concept in comparison to the non-valid or invalid, in other words, determinations that exist for the quantity of assumptions.
Oh yeah, okay. I remember what you said to this, because that I would always be like assuming the negation of any other assumption. Like if I'm assuming that this is true, or wait, okay, well, hold up, dude. What are you laughing about? Fucking
Go ahead.
yeah, okay. I remember your response to this. Like this in our last debate, it was about assuming the negations and stuff. But I'll just ask you, do you think that's something that's like necessary? Because this is
If
a
you say
reason that
that
you're
X is
using
the case,
against, like,
my bad.
sorry, wait, there's something that you're using against quantitative parsimony in general, or
Okay, before we
I
get to the
said
burden that you're placing upon me unreasonably, I don't know if you're cutting out or not, but okay, but go ahead.
I'm not.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
okay.
So,
Am I cutting out for anybody else, or is
no,
it
no,
good?
no, 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 no,
Yeah,
okay, you're
you
good now.
when
Well,
you were
yeah, they
making
say
your
you're cutting
point,
out, but I can hear
you
you
were
now.
lighter for me.
Yeah, give your point again.
Oh, okay, yeah. So the point that you made about negations, I want you that as a basis against like
Uh, uh,
quantitative parsimony or Occam's razor.
uh, 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 all the low tiers in the VC, like Haram, please use your ears, open up, and listen to this very basic point I'm about to give. The laws of logic are likely
Ironic.
true. The laws of logic includes the law of excluded middle. The law of excluded middle says that there's no middle ground between values in terms of descriptions within the reality of a state of affairs that corresponds to reality or to that corresponds with this domain. So it's the case that something is either true or false. So when you say that, that means if you assert that X is the case, not X is not the case. So if you assume that X is the case, and that's an assumption because I don't grant it, there's no evidence in which has been It's the case that you're assuming not X is false. Yes. What's the response?
Yeah, okay. Why does it necessarily go against the law of non-excluded middlemen? Because obviously, like I grant the law of non-excluded middle and the laws of classical logic. It's not something I'm going against. I'm just asking you, why is it the case that it goes against this necessarily?
Yeah, the reason why it goes against it necessarily is because when you say that something is true, that means that you, at least for you to be consistent with your belief, it must be the case that you're saying that it's opposite or you law exclude the middle. What that means to say, for you to, I'm assuming that you believe, I'm assuming you believe that classical logic is descriptive, not prescriptive. So I'm going to say something along the lines of, it follows that for your actions to be performatively justifying your beliefs, which is being a classical logician or classical logic being descriptive of reality, it must be the case that your belief of X being true entails that its opposite is false under your other coherent beliefs or your other system of coherence. It follows, it obviously means that the law of excluded middle is upheld, performatively speaking. So necessarily, if you believe X, you must believe Y to be false, which is the opposite of X or the negation of X, for your beliefs to be consistent. So that's why. Simple as that. If they're
Well,
X, then you're not X, like not being the case.
I know that, but what if you have a situation where there's some X interpretation necessarily like asserts X, but then you have another interpretation. In that case, I don't think I would necessarily have to go against the law of non-excluded middle because I'm not
No,
necessarily
no,
like.
it does because. Mhm.
Oh no, I'm done. You can go.
Okay, so in this scenario, is it the case that the hypothesis, which is the first one, asserts X? Is it the case that that hypothesis is incompatible with Y in a way in which the hypothesis negates Y, being the case?
Yeah, I already told you this. In a case where it's not incompatible.
Yeah, so within this scenario, our hypothesis is incompatible. So that's why I'm saying it's more consistent. That's why I'm not saying it's true, but rather it's more consistent. So I can grant that there are situations in which ontological parsimony, semantical parsimony, Occam's razor overall, even statistical parsimony are able to account for spoken about. Then there's just no reason as to why your point is more ideologically parsimony, especially since both of our interpretations are incompatible. It's the case that it's either a conjunction which is exclusive or it's a conjunction which is inclusive. So whenever you say that there's a negative assumption, scenario, you're a negation to my hypothesis too. So the scenario that you gave, or in other words, the example that you gave, would be disanalogous. That analogy would not fit within the scenario. Disanalogous.
Yeah, okay. Do you want to move on from this point?
Can you respond to the point?
I believe I already have. You believe you defeated it. We can just move on. You're not our judge
Okay.
yet.
So Tron, just to be clear, the entire point is, and yes, that's the judge was about Tron. The entire point is that within that my view of parsimony is more consistent, respectfully speaking. Within the scenario, it's the case that will be, but within the scenario, we'll have a better application in comparison to all these other accounts of parsimony. Specifically, he mentioned statistical parsimony, which also talks about in this scenario incompatibility between hypothesis one and hypothesis two, because exclusive conjunctions and inclusive conjunctions analytically are distinct. Therefore, that disrules or that disqualifies the compatibility between the two. We have a hypothesis one from him, which is talking about an our hypothesis exclusive conjunction, while my hypothesis is talking about an inclusive conjunction. So they're incompatible. Yay! The analogy he gave is not incompatible. So okay, move on now.
Okay, yeah. Now we just have to go into Kizaru over Luffy. I think this is just because of their fight. I'll get you the scans if you want. Hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is because of their. Do you want the scan, or do you want me to just like give the
I say
explanation?
go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Niggas still thought they were real. Can't try. Yo, Haram, you're a big bro. Like, damn, bro. Infinity can never prove the laws of logic are true. Like, but what is wrong with you, bro? Like, what did I do to you? Damn. What the fuck? I don't even be dig right at you this hard at your debates, nigga. Yo, Haram, you're not trolling, bro. You're dead ass. You're not trolling.
Been gooning throughout this debate too, by the way.
Wait, Haram, what did I say that's false when it comes to the description of a truth table?
Yeah, but what is
That's
like
why I said
truth
nothing.
mean? Like, what is a table really?
What did you?
I'm sexy.
Okay, we just see this panel. They seem to be clashing, and it's the case that there's
That's
gonna be
for my bad. Do you want to
nerves.
leave it off? Because I do want to leave it off on the first point.
Huh?
Whoever won the first point wins the entire debate.
Oh, sure, we can do that. Yeah.
But